Picture this. You're driving down a lonely highway at midnight. Your headlights catch something in the distance. A caravan, parked where it shouldn't be. Windows dark. No signs of life. But as you pass by, you swear you see a shadow move inside. Your heart pounds, but you keep driving. You tell yourself, it's nothing. But what if it wasn't nothing? What if some caravans hold secrets so dark, so twisted, that they'll haunt you long after you've heard their stories? Tonight, I'm sharing 5 true horror stories about caravan houses that will make you think twice about that innocent-looking trailer parked down the street. These aren't urban legends. These aren't made-up tales. These are real events that happen to real people. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why some caravans are best left alone. Stay with me until the very end, because the final story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about mobile homes. In March 2019, Sandra Matthews moved into Willowbrook Caravan Park in rural Texas. She'd just gone through a messy divorce and needed somewhere cheap to start over. The park manager, a friendly man named Bill, showed her to Lot 47. It was perfect, quiet, private. With only one neighbor, Lot 46 housed an old Airstream trailer that looked like it hadn't moved in decades. "Who lives there?" Sandra asked, pointing to the weathered silver trailer. Bill's smile faltered. "Oh, that's Mr. Henderson. He's very private. Keeps to himself mostly." Sandra shrugged. She preferred quiet neighbors anyway. For the first few weeks, everything was peaceful. Sandra would wave whenever she saw movement in the Airstream's windows, but no one ever waved back. The curtains were always drawn tight. She never heard voices, never saw lights at night. It was like living next to a ghost. Then, the smell started. It began as a faint odor on warm afternoons. Sweet, cloying, and wrong somehow. Sandra assumed it was a septic issue and mentioned it to Bill during her rent payment. "I'll look into it," he promised. But his eyes wouldn't meet hers. The smell got worse. By June, Sandra couldn't open her windows without gagging. Other residents started complaining too. Mrs. Chen from Lot 52 stopped by Sandra's trailer one evening, her face pale. "Something's not right about that Henderson place," she whispered. "I haven't seen him in months. Not since winter." That night, Sandra couldn't sleep. The smell had become unbearable, and flies were starting to gather around her windows. At 3 a.m., she grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. The summer heat made the stench even worse. She approached the Airstream slowly. Up close, she could see that the windows were sealed with duct tape from the inside. Black plastic covered the vents. Her flashlight beam caught something else, a padlock on the door that looked brand new. Sandra knocked gently. "Mr. Henderson, are you okay in there?" Silence. She pressed her ear to the door and immediately jerked back. There was a sound inside. Not human. Buzzing. Thousands of flies. The next morning, Sandra called the police. When they arrived with Bill and a locksmith, the stench hit them from 20 feet away. The officer who cut the lock immediately stumbled backward, vomiting into the bushes. Inside the Airstream, they found what was left of Harold Henderson. He'd been dead for over 8 months. But that wasn't the horrifying part. The horrifying part was that someone had been taking care of him all this time. Fresh flowers sat in a vase beside the body. His hair had been combed. His clothes had been changed recently. The police investigation revealed that Harold's adult son, Michael, had been living underneath the trailer in a space he'd excavated by hand. He'd been caring for his father's body, visiting him daily, having conversations with what remained of the corpse. Michael was never found. When police searched the crawlspace, they discovered it was empty except for a handwritten note. He was never alone. He'll never be alone. Sandra moved out that same day. The Airstream was removed, but Lot 46 remains empty. Current residents say that on quiet nights, you can still hear someone talking softly where the trailer used to be. Route 66 has seen its share of strange travelers, but nothing prepared truck driver Jake Morrison for what he encountered on a foggy November night in 2017. Jake was hauling freight from Oklahoma City to Albuquerque when his engine started overheating near a rest stop outside Amarillo. As he pulled over to let the engine cool, his headlights illuminated a family of 5 standing beside a beat-up travel trailer. The father waved him down desperately. "Please, sir. Our trailer broke down. My wife, she's real sick. Can you help us?" Jake was a father himself. He couldn't drive past a family in distress. He grabbed his tools and approached their setup. The trailer was ancient, probably from the 1970s, with rust eating through the sides and windows covered with newspaper from the inside. "What seems to be the problem?" Jake asked. The man, who introduced himself as Thomas, explained that their electrical system had failed. His wife Sarah was inside with their 3 children, all under 10 years old. She had a bad fever and needed to get to a hospital. Jake spent an hour working on their electrical panel by flashlight. The family seemed grateful but oddly nervous. The children kept peeking out from behind the trailer, their eyes wide with what Jake thought was fear of strangers. "There you go," Jake finally announced, flipping the main breaker. "Should have power now." The lights came on inside the trailer, and through a gap in the newspaper covering the windows, Jake caught a glimpse of the interior. What he saw made his blood freeze. The walls were covered in photographs, hundreds of them, all of different families, different children, different people who looked terrified. Some photos showed people tied up. Others showed worse things. Jake backed away slowly, his hand moving toward his truck keys. "Thank you so much," Thomas said. But his voice had changed. Colder. "You've been so helpful." That's when Jake noticed the children weren't hiding behind the trailer anymore. They were surrounding him. And they weren't children at all. They were adults, small and twisted, their faces aged beyond their apparent years. Jake ran. He made it to his truck and gunned the engine, not caring that it was still overheating. In his rearview mirror, he saw the entire family standing in the road, watching him disappear into the fog. The next morning, Jake called the police from the next truck stop. When they investigated, they found the rest area empty, except for fresh tire tracks and something else. Scattered photographs, blown by the wind. Each one showed a different person who'd clearly been held against their will. The FBI took over the case. They identified the photos as evidence from 17 different kidnapping cases spanning 12 states over the past decade. The family had been moving their mobile prison across the country, targeting isolated travelers and truckers. They were never caught. Jake quit long-haul trucking that same month. He still wakes up screaming some nights, remembering the sound of small feet running in the darkness behind him. When Rebecca Park inherited her grandmother's property in rural Oregon, she expected maybe an old farmhouse and some land. What she didn't expect was the collection of 7 vintage travel trailers, arranged in a perfect circle in the middle of 40 acres of forest. Her grandmother's lawyer, Mr. Weiss, met her at the property in October 2020. The autumn fog hung thick between the trees, making the trailers look like ghost ships floating in a gray sea. Your grandmother was eccentric in her later years. Mr. Weiss explained as they walked toward the circle. She lived in the center trailer there. The others, well, she claimed they were occupied. By who? Rebecca asked. She never said. Just insisted that all 7 trailers needed to stay exactly where they were. She was very specific about that in her will. Each trailer was from a different era. A 1960s Airstream, a 1970s Winnebago, a 1980s Fleetwood. They looked maintained but lived in. Curtains hung in the windows. Lawn chairs sat outside some doors. Rebecca decided to stay in her grandmother's trailer while she figured out what to do with the property. That first night, she learned why her grandmother had so many specific rules. At exactly midnight, she heard footsteps outside. Not human footsteps. Something heavier, slower. The sound of something dragging across the ground. Rebecca peered through the curtains and saw a shape moving between the trailers. Tall, impossibly thin, and moving in a way that made her eyes water to watch. The next morning, she found gifts outside her door. A bouquet of dead flowers. A child's toy that looked decades old. A photograph of a family she didn't recognize, with their faces scratched out. Rebecca called Mr. Weiss. "Oh, yes," he said calmly. "The visitors. Your grandmother mentioned them. She said as long as you followed the rules, they'd leave you alone." "What rules?" "Never go outside after 11 p.m. Never answer if something knocks on your door after dark. And never, ever try to look inside the other trailers." Rebecca thought the old man was losing his mind until the second night. The dragging sound came again, but this time, it was accompanied by voices, whispered conversations, just outside her windows. When she pressed her ear to the door, she heard what sounded like a family having dinner in the Winnebago across from her. The problem was, she'd checked that trailer the day before. It was empty, except for dust and spiders. On the third night, her curiosity got the better of her. At 2 a.m., she crept outside with a flashlight and approached the 1970s Fleetwood. The windows glowed with warm yellow light. She could hear children laughing inside. She tried the door handle. It was unlocked. Inside, she found a perfectly preserved family scene from 1978. A mother was cooking dinner while her husband read a newspaper. 3 children played on the floor with toys that should have crumbled decades ago. They all turned to look at Rebecca when she entered. Their faces were wrong. Features shifted and blurred like they couldn't quite remember how to be human anymore. "We've been waiting for you," the mother said in a voice like static. "Grandma promised you'd come visit." Rebecca ran. She packed her car and left that same night, never looking back. She donated the property to the state, with the condition that the trailers never be moved or demolished. The park rangers who patrol the area report that on foggy nights, you can see lights in all 7 trailers. Sometimes, they say, you can hear the sound of multiple families having dinner together, laughing and talking like everything is normal. But if you get too close, the laughter stops, and something starts dragging itself toward your footsteps in the dark. Emergency responder Lisa Chen had seen everything in her 15 years with Oregon Search and Rescue: missing hikers, lost children, accident victims. But the call she received on a snowy February morning in 2021 was different. "We have a welfare check request," dispatch explained. "Elderly couple in a travel trailer. Haven't been seen in 3 weeks. Neighbors are concerned." The trailer was parked on private land, deep in the Cascade Mountains. Lisa and her partner Mike had to hike the last 2 miles through knee-deep snow to reach it. The isolation was complete. No cell service. No other signs of human life for miles. The trailer was an older model Prowler, probably 30 feet long. Smoke was coming from the chimney, which was a good sign. Someone was alive inside. Lisa knocked on the door.
"Hello, this is Search and Rescue. We're here to check on you."
A woman's voice answered, weak and shaky. "We're fine. Just fine. Please, go away." "Ma'am, your neighbors are worried. Can we just see that you're okay? We can't come to the door right now. We're not feeling well." Mike circled the trailer while Lisa kept talking. He came back with a concerned look and motioned her away from the door. "The windows are all covered from inside," he whispered. "And there's something weird about the snow around the trailer. It's stained. Dark stains leading away from the door." Lisa felt her training kick in. Something was very wrong. "Ma'am, we need to see you to complete our welfare check. Can you at least come to the window?" Silence stretched for a full minute. Then, "Harold can't move. He's been sick for so long. So very long." The voice was different now. Younger. And there was something else in the background. A sound, like someone trying to speak through water. Mike tried the door handle. It was unlocked. Inside, the smell hit them like a physical wall. The trailer was dark, except for candles burning everywhere, creating dancing shadows on the walls. In the back bedroom, they found what used to be Harold Brennan. He'd been dead for months, but someone had been trying to keep him fresh. The woman sitting beside the body was not Harold's wife. She was maybe 30 years old, painfully thin, wearing clothes that belonged to an elderly woman. When she turned to look at them, Lisa saw that half her face was frostbitten black. "He wouldn't let me leave," the woman whispered. "Said we were married now. Said I had to take care of him forever." The real Mrs. Brennan was found buried in the woods behind the trailer. The woman, whose name was Kelly Walsh, had been hiking alone when she'd stopped to help what seemed like a stranded elderly couple. Harold had kept her prisoner for 8 months, forcing her to play the role of his dead wife. When Harold died of natural causes in December, Kelly had been too traumatized and malnourished to leave. She'd continued caring for his body because that's what he'd trained her to do. Kelly survived, but she never fully recovered. She's in a care facility now, and sometimes she still asks the nurses if Harold needs his medicine. The trailer was burned by the county health department, but locals say that on winter nights, you can still see candlelight flickering where it used to stand. The final story takes place in 2018 in a trailer park outside Phoenix, Arizona. Detective Maria Santos was investigating what seemed like a routine burglary report when she discovered something that still gives her nightmares. The complaint came from the park manager. Someone had been breaking into empty trailers and stealing personal belongings left behind by former tenants. Small things mostly. Photographs, jewelry, clothing. Maria started her investigation at the park office, reviewing security footage. The cameras showed a figure moving between trailers late at night, but always kept to the shadows. What caught her attention was that the break-ins followed a pattern. The intruder only targeted trailers that had belonged to single women. The park manager, Jim Davidson, was helpful at first. He provided keys and detailed records of which trailers had been burglarized. But Maria noticed something odd in his behavior. He kept steering her away from one particular section of the park. "Those trailers are condemned," he explained. "Structural damage. Not safe to enter." Maria's instincts told her otherwise. That night, she returned to the park alone and approached the forbidden section. 5 trailers sat in a row, all with their windows blocked out and doors padlocked shut. She could hear sounds coming from inside the trailers. Not voices exactly, but something that made the hair on her arms stand up, like breathing. like whispered conversations. Maria called for backup and a warrant. When they returned the next morning with bolt cutters, they found something that defied explanation. Each trailer had been converted into a shrine. The stolen belongings were arranged like museum displays. Photographs of the former female tenants covered every wall. Their clothes hung in closets, like the women might return at any moment. Their jewelry was laid out on dressers, beside makeup and perfume. But that wasn't the worst part. In the center of each trailer sat a mannequin dressed in the woman's clothes. Each mannequin had been modified to look like the specific tenant who'd lived there. Hair color, height, even facial features carved into the plastic to match photographs. Jim Davidson had been collecting pieces of every single woman who'd ever rented a trailer in his park for 12 years. Some of the shrines contained belongings from women who'd moved away a decade ago. When they arrested Davidson, he seemed genuinely confused by the charges. "I was preserving them," he said. "They were all so beautiful, so special. I couldn't let them just disappear forever." The investigation revealed that Davidson had master keys to every trailer in the park. He'd been entering women's homes while they slept, taking small personal items they might not notice were missing. Some tenants had reported feeling like someone had been in their trailer, but most chalked it up to imagination. During questioning, Davidson admitted to something even more disturbing. He claimed the mannequins talked to him, that late at night, the women would whisper to him about their lives, their secrets, their fears. "They're happy now," he insisted. "They're safe. No one can hurt them anymore." Maria had seen a lot in her career, but the trailer shrines haunted her for months afterward. Not because of what Davidson had done, but because of what she'd heard that first night outside the trailers. She never told anyone about the voices, about how they'd sounded so real, so grateful, like the mannequins really were trying to speak. The trailers were demolished, but Maria still drives past that empty lot sometimes. And sometimes, on quiet nights, she swears she can hear whispered conversations carried on the desert wind. These 5 stories share something beyond just happening in caravan houses. They remind us that horror doesn't need ancient castles or abandoned asylums. Sometimes the most terrifying things happen in the most ordinary places. Mobile homes, travel trailers, the kind of temporary shelters we pass every day without a second thought. But now you know better. Now you know that behind those innocent curtains and cheerful awnings, darkness can take root just as easily as anywhere else. Maybe more easily, because who suspects the friendly neighbor in the RV next door? The next time you see a caravan parked somewhere it shouldn't be, or notice a travel trailer with all its windows covered, or pass by a mobile home park where everything seems a little too quiet, remember these stories. Remember that some homes are meant to move for a reason. They're always running from something. Or worse, they're always hunting for something new. Sweet dreams. And if you live in a trailer, maybe check your locks one more time tonight. Some visitors don't need an invitation to come inside. If these stories sent a chill down your spine, like the video. It helps more horror lovers discover our tales. Subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss what's hiding in the dark. Share this video with someone who swears they're not afraid of the dark. Let's test that. And remember, some stories don't end when the lights come back on. This is Dread Dynasty.